I've also had some encounters with the farmers who own the land where they were suspicious of me. One person actually called the sheriff on me. Another one brought all his friends to sort of intimidate and yell at me. So it wasn't the toughest situation, but those are some tough situations I've faced.
So that's the part that intrigues me. This is the Wild World Podcast. Today we will discuss the reptilian monster spotted in the seas off Cyprus, rare animals caught on tape for the first time, and some incredible discoveries.
And if you've ever wondered what a professional in the field of wildlife biology does all day, we will be covering that today as well. So what's been on your wildlife radar lately, Thomas?
Just big deep sea sharks, getting that video out. That's all I've been thinking about.
Oh yeah.
And I know you haven't really heard of them, but...
Yeah, well, maybe I have and I didn't remember. Like, I've heard of a lot of things in passing. They just weren't that important to me.
Yeah. So if you haven't already, you can check out the video on the main channel about some sleeper sharks as a cameo from Mika. That she
Uncredited and unpaid.
Well, it was only like 10 seconds.
That's 10 seconds of my time that I could be getting paid for.
Who gets paid by the second? Come on.
Probably someone. Cameo people. Anyway.
Yeah, Cameo will come up again later on this podcast. What about your wildlife radar?
So I've seen a lot of animals as usual. It's pretty impossible to even list them all. I've seen frogs and a salamander, snakes, birds, especially turkey vultures and pheasants, raccoons, opossums, badgers, foxes, tons of deer. What I'm still looking for is bobcats, mountain lions, and bears, but that is unlikely.
What are, like, the rough odds of you seeing animals like that?
Well, one of my coworkers did see a mountain lion, so...
Wow.
Non-zero, I would say.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to just jump right into Cryptic Court?
Yes.
On a moonless night on the Mediterranean, just off the coast of Cape Greco, a fisherman cast his nets into the deep, still waters. The night was silent, save the gentle lapping of the waves against his boat. Suddenly, a powerful tug nearly pulled him overboard, and he felt his net strain and tear under the weight of something enormous. He peered into the inky blackness, but he could see nothing beyond the faint glimmer of starlight on the water. Though he could not see the creature, he knew what it was. A sea monster, the Agia Napa, said to haunt the waters around Cyprus.
So today, for Cryptid Court, we are going to be discussing the Agia Napa sea monster. Had you heard of this before?
Yes, actually I had.
I hadn't.
I remember years ago I was going to make a video about it, or I sort of planned to. And I remember looking up, I think what caught my attention was that on some website it was like, oh, these B&Bs or hotels boast like a high probability of sighting the monster. Mm-hmm. And then I went to the website of like the hotel and it was really janky and old. And there was no mention of it anywhere on the website. Even like doing a search.
That's like a lot of seaside resort type places in places such as Greece, Cyprus, I'm imagining, because that's, they don't need to spend a lot of money on their websites. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the thing I'm saying is that there was no mention of the monster on the actual website. It was just another like cryptid website that was like, oh, this hotel boasts that you can see the monster.
But maybe it's the kind of thing they wouldn't put on their website and they have it in paper form in their lobby or something.
Maybe, but we'll get into it a bit more, I guess. So what is this creature?
So it is a very specific creature to a location. Agia Napa is a popular Cyprus resort, although I read one thing that said it's not as popular anymore. So it's a once popular Cyprus resort. And the sightings... What?
Because of the monster.
No. Well, the sightings have always occurred around Cape Greco, and they are not new, so it doesn't explain the tourism thing, because it's been about since the 4th century.
2nd century AD.
Yes, thank you. It's been around since the 2nd century AD, according to legend. And it is just a big tourist attraction, apparently, in Cyprus or at this resort. Should I describe it?
Sure.
So it's just like a serpent thing with a lot of necks. There are many pictures of it, and it's complicated by people trying to link it back to Greek mythology. So it's hard to describe what it's supposed to look like. We don't have any actual pictures linked to any sightings. The only sightings we have are incidental, as in my fishing nets got damaged. We don't know what it looks like
Um,
at all.
there are some descriptions, but they're really vague. Like
Mm-hmm.
on Destination Truth, which we might talk about a little bit, the show with Josh Gates. There was like an old woman, and she said it had red eyes and sharp teeth, but that was like the only description she gave.
And how many red eyes and how many sets of sharp teeth did it have?
I don't know if they specified actually.
So I have a couple of pictures on the notes. One picture is probably the most commonly used specifically for the Agianapa sea monster, and it has multiple heads and sort of some legs, maybe. But the most important thing is that it has long necks and multiple heads and necks.
It's very
So if
similar
she
to a
didn't see multiple
hydra.
heads,
It's pretty similar to a hydra.
yes, that is true. So many people, it's not clear whether they say the sightings date to the second century because they have legitimate sightings from then, or if it's because that's when they can date the myth to. And the myth, you could consider that to be the same thing, or you could say it is totally different. The myth is the Scylla. In English, it's called the Scylla, and in Greek, it's called the Scylla. It is just a myth of a beautiful nymph from the Odyssey who got turned into a monster and then became a man-eater. There are multiple reasons for why she got turned into a monster that we won't get into, and different accounts vary. But she has a human torso, a serpent lower half, and she has dogs coming out of her thighs, mini dogs. So that can translate to the multiple heads and necks of the sea monster, but it's not really similar that much. The common quote about the heads is that it had more heads than the face painters could paint. So there's a pretty famous painting of the nymph turning into the Scylla and the dogs like bursting out of her thighs. Pretty scary, I guess.
I
Yeah.
think you can actually go and see it in the Temple of Dionysus or something. It's open
Yeah.
for tourists.
There's a temple, I'm not sure which one it is, but it is near Agianapa, the resort. So it features that painting, which is how people came to link them.
Hmm.
In the story of the Scylla from the Odyssey, Odysseus successfully navigates the strait, but he and his crew are distracted by sort of Scylla's counterpart, Charybdis, which is a whirlpool. And so he's like trying to deal with that, and then Scylla snatches 6 sailors off the deck and devours them alive. There's a quote in translation that I put here. They writhed, gasping, as Scylla swung them up her cliff, and there at her cavern's mouth she bolted them down raw, screaming out, flinging their arms toward me, lost in that mortal struggle. So, what do you notice about the legend of Scylla that is different than the legend of the Agianapa sea monster?
I think the obvious thing is the description, like a
Yes.
woman with dog. Like it's very loose. Like the only thing is multiple heads and maybe some serpent features.
And being in the water.
Yeah, but wasn't the Scylla like part of the cliff in some of the stories as well?
Maybe. That's a good point because it's like, it's a saying similar to caught between a rock and a hard place. It's caught between the Charybdis and the Scylla, where you're like on one side is the whirlpool and the water, and on the other side is the cliffs or the. Actually, some people say that it's totally metaphorical and it's not meant to be seen as a real thing at all. It just is a metaphor for the rocks and the reefs in the waters by the cliff. So,
Yeah, because they destroy ships, and then it's like, oh, she. It's like say when people call like the sea, like oh she killed a bunch
yeah.
of sailors or something. It's like oh the cliffs and the rocks got a bunch of sailors.
So, The other thing I would notice is that the Scylla is very violent. She's like grabbing people and making them go into the water and die. But there are no sightings linked to any deaths for the Agia Napa sea monster. Isn't that true?
Yes.
In fact, right, some people call this monster Tophiligo terras, the friendly monster. It's just a friendly little guy. Nothing to be afraid of, right?
Yeah, the woman said that she was too afraid to go back into the water after she had a sighting. And I guess it's annoying for fishermen who say it destroys their nets, but it's not like, doesn't sound very vicious.
Mm-hmm. So what are other explanations there could be?
Well, I guess I'll just spoil Destination Truth because it's like pretty old now. But they sort of came up with the conclusion that they thought it was a basking shark.
Really?
Yeah. I don't really know why. Because like
So
for most of the show,
it was a basking shark that was stealing people's nets and stuff.
I guess they just figured a basking shark is big.
So they did a whole episode on this, and they just concluded that it's big. Maybe it's a basking shark. Like they didn't have any sightings or anything.
Well, what they did was, okay, first of all, they had like a CGI model of like a giant crocodile or like mosasaur-like creature. And they made all these claims, which I don't know where they got it from. They're like, it predates by using its strong tail to smack into its prey to stun them. And it has 2 rows of like teeth and everything. And I was like, where do they get this from? Then they had like a few little sightings. And then a lot of it was like, you know how those shows go. It's like they're out at night and I saw something over there. Where? And then the camera shakes and they didn't quite catch it on camera. So you just see a bit of a wave. And then like they found fishing nets at the bottom of the ocean, which they were like, oh, something destroyed these nets. It's kind of your standard reality TV of like ghost hunters or cryptid hunters.
So is it worth watching then?
Maybe not, but Josh Gates, the host, he's on Cameo.
Oh.
And
did you hire him for this podcast?
I was tempted to hire him to just be like, you're listening to the Wild World podcast or something. But he's a little pricey, so I don't know if I will.
How much?
Like $150.
Oh, no. That's too much for us. It's over our budget.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Gates.
Give us a discount, please, if you're listening.
Yeah. Well, we didn't really give a glowing review of his show. I mean, it's fun, but it's...
Well, at least someone went out there and investigated this situation. That's something.
That's true. That's like... And these were like the only sightings that I could find where you could like... Because they are actually interviewing people. I don't know, like you could say, well, how do you know they're not paid actors or something? But maybe they are, but it's more substantial than some like forum post or something, I think.
Yeah, basically all the information I found was in weird forum posts. So,
yeah.
So there are some other explanations which are sometimes given for this monster phenomenon outside Cyprus in the waters. One is that they were pet crocodilians that were released in the area and are just going around in the water doing their thing. But these were found in the Kouros Dam, which is not the same as Cape Greco. It's a dam, not the ocean, not the sea, and it's 126 kilometers from Cape Greco, almost 80 miles.
Yeah.
So that's not the same. Mm-hmm.
But the crocodile story is only a rumor. They're from like the early 2000s. So that's not even confirmed. There was this rumor in 2005 that someone smuggled Nile crocodiles from Egypt as babies, sold them. They got too big. And then a bunch of people released them in the dam. But the fisheries department spent a month searching the dam, did a full sweep 8 times, and found 0 evidence of crocodiles being there.
Well, obviously they just let them loose, and then some crocodile collector snapped them up.
And moved them to...
his private crocodile reserve.
At Cape Greco. To be fair, it is like a cool place to have a monster, because there's like so many sea caves and underwater caves all around there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think it's crocodiles either. And I also, this is another thing, I watched a video of like this vlogger who went there on a boat trip, and the boat stops there and everyone like just jumps in and swims around. So I think that also means it's probably not a bunch of Nile crocodiles there. But she asked the captain of the boat about the monster, and he was like, I've never heard of that. And this is a guy who like lived there and took tours there like almost every day.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read an article written in Greek. It was talking about how there is no monster. It was actually so hard to find Greek sources for this. And the fact that most of the sources are in English really says something about like who's popularizing this rumor, right? They're just trying
Right.
to make a sea or lake monster in every place, these people. You know, these lake monster fans, which we
Josh
know about.
Gates.
So, because people like the Loch Ness model. Anyway, this article was talking about how there is no monster. It was like, I don't know why everyone's like talking about this monster. Or not even everyone. I don't know why some people are talking about this monster. It's just a copycat of the Loch Ness monster, and it's not real, and like, stop, basically. So yeah, I couldn't find any specific tales of sightings, just things trying to connect it to folklore for almost no reason, saying that had damaged the fishing nets. But if you think about what could damage fishing nets, sea rocks can damage fishing nets, and sea rocks are the alternate explanation for the Scylla. So it could all go in one circle, even if the Agyanapa monster is the Scylla, then that means it's just rocks,
Maybe,
potentially.
yeah. I'm just thinking about those interviews as well. They were really, you know what I said? They were really vague. It was also like, I don't remember them actually saying like it was this monster. It was just like, it was huge, it was 2 tons, or it did something to my nets and I didn't see it. And I wonder if there was like some selective editing there.
Yeah, maybe he's like, "Oh, have you ever seen an elephant?" They're like, "Yeah, I saw one at the zoo. It was huge." And then the next question was,
Well, it could
"Was
just
you?"
be like, did anything ever interrupt your nets when you were fishing? It was like, yeah, something big got into my nets once, didn't see what it was.
Huh.
Cut that, put it in. I wonder how much that show like put this monster on the map as well. Because it feels like it's just all these different pieces. There's this like rumor about crocodiles. There's this folklore myth from thousands of years ago, and then there's, I don't know, maybe some weird things in the Mediterranean.
Mm-hmm. But if it was real, I think I would prefer it's the friendly monster versus the Scylla. Imagine if there was this cool friendly monster out there with a bunch of heads, and you can just swim with it. We should definitely go there and go snorkeling, and we can't stop until we see something larger than a human body.
Okay. If we
Yeah.
see a body floating in the water beside us, we'll just ignore it.
No, I mean, we can't stop snorkeling until we find something larger than a human.
Yeah. It does look like a nice place to go swimming. It's
Of
really clear.
course.
Yeah. And I bet it's really warm water if you go at the right time.
Yeah. We should auction off trips.
Auction them off? What do you mean?
We should have like little go to see a cryptid trip. People have to buy into it with a raffle system or an auction. And then the winner will go on the trip to see the cryptid and we'll go with them.
Basically, just pay us to go, and there's a small chance you'll come too.
Yeah, that's what all these influencer famous type
Just like
experiences
us.
could, they're usually like that. And yeah, maybe some people would be interested. So if you are interested in paying for us to go to Cyprus and also coming with us, please let us know.
You're
Or
such an
sponsoring
e-beggar,
us.
man.
Sponsoring us, like we could get a sponsorship through Cyprus tourism. That would be good.
That's another thing where I couldn't stop thinking about watching this. I'm now obsessed with Josh Gates. I was like, he did do multiple cryptids in one episode. So they flew from LA to Cyprus with his team and like all their camera gear and scuba gear and all that. And then they also went to somewhere in East Asia to look for like some primate. So they do 2 each episode, but they fly around the world with a team and like camera crew.
Obviously, he should have planned it out better. Done like 2 European ones, then 2 Asian ones.
Well, maybe
Basically,
they did,
go
but it's
around.
edited differently.
Ah. So, what do we think? Is the friendly monster of Cyprus, the Agyanapa sea monster, real?
Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't see any compelling evidence. If you want to see a good investigation, a so-so investigation, watch season 4, episode 13 of Destination Truth on Sci-Fi.
I don't know if I should say this or not. It's on Daily Motion as well.
Oh my gosh. You can also get it on Amazon Prime for $3. So,
Yeah.
in case you're not a bad person who's going to get canceled for...
Or maybe you're region locked away from watching it.
Oh, were you? Well, you could just buy the DVDs of Destination Truth. Buy season 4 and then you can watch it.
It is fun to watch, like, for all our criticism. Okay, should we move on?
Yes. And we would like to know your opinions on the sea monster, especially if you're from Cyprus or Greece or Turkey, for example, any of those in the area. We have had some comments from people who live in the areas of the cryptids we've covered, and that's really cool. I like when that happens.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that today, actually, right?
Maybe? Okay, but now we're moving on to our next segment.
Okay, so today I'm going to be interviewing a special guest,
Who?
a professional in the field.
Yes.
Some of you might have heard of her.
Are you going to add a drum roll to this?
Mika.
Yes. Today we're going to do a segment, A Day in the Life of a Wildlife Field Technician.
Yeah, I've prepared some questions, and I'm going to have some follow-up questions because some of these answers are very exciting.
Really?
A bit dangerous sounding. Yeah, some of the encounters you had with some locals. I guess we'll get there. Are there any questions you want me to skip?
No.
Okay. So first, just to set the scene, I guess, what kind of environment do you usually work in when you're out in the field?
So usually I am on farmland. It's
Okay.
like grasses or crops. Sometimes I'm in a cow field.
Is it private property? Or...
Yeah, it's on private property. That's where I do my work. Yep.
Okay. What's a typical day like for you when you're doing field work?
So here's my day. I wake up. I want to get out there by theoretically 6 a.m. at the earliest. I usually aim for 7. And for example, last week I got out by 8. I consider it good if I get out by 8. If I was a stronger willed person, I would be out there at 6 or 7. So I drive my car to one of my locations, and then I have to drive on these gravel roads, so not very well maintained. It's not driving on the highway.
Do you have an off-road vehicle?
I have an SUV that has all-wheel drive.
Okay.
And I get there, and then I need to usually open a gate to access the private property. I have to take a lot of pictures to document how I'm arriving and how I'm leaving to make sure that I don't leave a gate open so that no one can get angry at me. And I drive on like a private road to my location where I'm going to do my search. Then I do a short search and look for wildlife. Yeah. I write down the times I find the wildlife, the times I started and ended the search, and then I put it into a data form on my work tablet and on a paper data sheet. It's like double recording of data. So I do this about 20 to 30 times each day, going between different locations and collecting data that many times. And sometimes I do collect animals that I find that are dead, in case you're wondering, for further analysis by people who aren't me. And sometimes I do like bias trials. So like to figure out, basically like it's an sort of experiment to see how effective the method of my searching is for what we need to do. I will have lunch in my car at around 1. I'll have a bunch of snacks throughout the day because I need to keep myself going. It can get really hot or it can be sort of cold and windy. Bugs fly into my face. Bugs are like really stupid and they fly into you all the time. I try to work hard and then I leave the field by about 6 p.m.
Okay. Is most of your work field work?
Yes, I do field work all day, and then the only other work that isn't field work is submitting my data.
Okay. Um,
So I will get home at around 7 to 8, then I'll submit my data, then I'll eat dinner, and then I'll be like, I need free time because I'm not a robot, and then I'll go to bed too late, and then I'll wake up too late, and it repeats.
what do you do if you need to go to the bathroom?
In the fields, man.
Okay. What's the toughest situation you faced while working in the field?
Well, sometimes it's very windy and it's hard to get the good photos that I need to take. Sometimes it's rainy and it gets my notebook all wet. Sometimes there's lightning nearby and I have to sit in my car for ages until it passes. Another time, a farmer's gate fell. I had to sit there until someone came to fix it because cows could have escaped. I've also had some encounters with the farmers who own the land where they were suspicious of me. One person actually called the sheriff on me. Another one brought all his friends to sort of intimidate and yell at me. So it wasn't the toughest situation, but those are some tough situations I've faced.
That's the part that intrigues me. So you're on private farmland,
Yeah.
but surely all these people know you're there.
Well, how would they know? It's not like there's a doorbell.
But how are you allowed to go on there and do your surveys if like you didn't ask for permission first?
Well, I work for a company that works for a company that is partnered with the landowners.
Okay, but then shouldn't the landowners know that people are going out doing surveys?
Yeah, they know, but for some reason no one understands. Like all my coworkers are confused by it too. Everyone's always suspicious of me specifically. And because people are differing levels of informed about / caring about this kind of thing. Like they have a lot of land. Some of them are really tuned in to what's happening and to all the different people who have access to their land, and other people don't really care. They just are going by day to day. And if some random person is there and you're not expecting them to be there, you will react with surprise.
So what did you do when the sheriff and all came out?
When the sheriff came, I was just like, hello? And he said that the farmer was suspicious of me, so he called him and asked him to check me out. And he was like, just to confirm, what are you doing here? And I said I was doing wildlife surveys. And he was like, yeah, I knew that already because I knew you. I've seen you around. I was like, oh. And he was like, don't get too hot out here. And he left.
And what about when the gang of farmers showed up to scare you or whatever?
So what happened was I was actually acting quite imprudent. I was listening to an SNL skit really loudly through my car's radio because my car was on. I was using the air conditioning, and then my phone was connected through the stereo system, which meant that everything I was listening to was louder than it should have been, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was listening to this SNL skit, which was very sort of rave music. It's the kind of thing that you would be upset about if you were witnessing someone doing that you didn't recognize their car and they're on your property, right? They were probably
Yeah, it'd be a bit weird.
Who's this hooligan? Just when I realized that they were there, it took a while because I was not paying attention to anything, just totally zoned out. And then I heard them saying, excuse me. And I look behind me, I'm like, oh my God, it's a huge truck. I mean, it's chock full of these men. And I got out of my car and I was like, oh, hi, sorry. And I was wearing a high-vis vest and a hard hat maybe I wasn't wearing the hard hat. I was definitely wearing the high-vis vest, which shows that I am an employee of the company that works sort of with the land. And they were like, oh, we didn't realize that you worked for them. We thought you were just some random person. Usually an SUV isn't the vehicle that people use. It's usually a pickup truck, and I have an SUV. So they were like, sorry, we'll get out of your way. We'll let you go along with your business. And then they left. but they were like all basically standing in the truck looking at me, trying to. I can only assume that they were trying to intimidate me because otherwise, why would all his friends be in the truck? And they were wearing
Sounds scary.
yeah, they were wearing like shirts talking about their guns. So they were all wearing them. So my coworkers were like, they obviously did that on purpose. I don't know if they did, but it was
Well, they
interesting.
hardly got changed and then came over to you.
Right, I feel like they were wearing them already. But
Yeah. Okay. And then on the flip side, what do you enjoy the most about doing field work?
I enjoy being outside every day, finally using my degree. It's pretty self-paced, so I get to choose how much work I get done in a day, pretty much. And I get to see and interact with real animals every day, which is was always a dream of mine.
Cool. What animals or plants are you focusing on right now?
Right now, the focus is birds and bats.
Mm-hmm. How do you gather data when you're in the field? What tools do you use?
So I use a tablet which has location information. I use a ruler to take measurements, a camera to take photos, although it's just in the tablet. But photos are like the biggest part, and like a rangefinder to figure out distances.
Right. So I guess this is important. How do you make sure the data is accurate?
Well, my work is being checked by lots of people above me. We said that I'm a professional, and I guess I am, but I'm the lowest tier. I have some flowcharts and things to check if I'm not sure about an identification that I've made about an animal. For some things like locations that I'm trying to mark, I try to double check with multiple instruments, and we double check our data for accuracy and logic, like if it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I guess you kind of already answered this, but what do you do with your data after you get back? You send it in to someone, is it?
Yeah, I check it, and then I have to send it in to our database.
How do you make sure you're not harming any animals or plants?
Well, I don't disturb live animals. I drive carefully so I don't run anything over. The only thing I'm harming is plants, but it is only farmland, so usually it's not like a very important native plant. There are some meadows with resilient grasses and weeds that I run over, but they'll be fine.
I might just skip the next question about dangerous situations because I feel like you already answered that. How do you cope with being away from home or being in a remote place for a long time? It seems like you kind of like it though, right?
Yeah, I do like it, and I'm lucky that I have a lot of coworkers who we all get along, and we hang out every weekend and sometimes during the week. So it's nice, like it's a slow-paced lifestyle, and everything I need is here. Like there's a Walmart, so I can get things. I have access to Amazon, so I can get things that aren't at Walmart. There are restaurants. There aren't as many restaurant varieties that I would like, but I'm alive. It's fine. There have been worse places to live, I'm sure. And so, like, it's really good to have people who I get along with. I think if I was all by myself, it would be different and maybe more difficult.
So I guess maybe some people listening, I mean, they're probably interested in biology and maybe they're hoping to get into this kind of work if they're not already. Is there any advice you'd give to someone who wants to do field work like you?
Yeah, depending on your age, this might be more or less relevant, but you should get started gaining experience as soon as you can. Whether that's your classwork, volunteering, or interning, you want to be doing real field work. You don't want to just be learning in a classroom. There are some new grad type jobs that are offered in many places for people looking to get started. A lot of times you want to do things that don't pay very well or even are unpaid, because I know some people say that's sort of an American thing to not pay interns, but it's actually a universal thing for biologists, because I found some openings in Australia, for example, that are unpaid internships. And a lot of people try to get you to pay for these internships even, like do field work in Africa for 6 weeks, and it'll be thousands of dollars. So if you have the opportunity to do something for free, that's really good. Try to save up so you can afford those kinds of situations. And usually they'll give you some discounted or free housing, so that's pretty nice. I don't qualify for any of the new grad type jobs because I'm too old, but I am willing to move around and do less pleasant or boring tasks until I get established, and you should be too. So if you can't afford to work for no pay, definitely be willing to move and to do things like looking for dead animals or hiking for several miles a day, carrying heavy loads, because you're not going to be getting a super fancy gig right away.
Mm-hmm. So what skills do you think are most important for someone doing your kind of field work?
So I would say a few different skills: the ability to learn and adapt, the love of wildlife and the outdoors, resilience to weather and field conditions. Like I said, it can be windy, rainy, hot, or cold. The ability to drive is pretty good, and safely on various road types. Physical fitness, enough to walk around and get around situations like gates, nothing too crazy. You don't have to be a CrossFit bodybuilder, triathlete, but you do need to be able to walk for a while. The willingness to work hard and maybe doing repetitive or thankless tasks without getting frustrated.
Okay, I think that's pretty much what I had for now. Like I said, maybe there's some people listening who are like interested in getting into a career like that. We'll mention this again at the end, but maybe if they email in, you can respond to them.
Yeah, we can respond on the podcast, or if you prefer a private response, just mention that in your email and I can respond to you that way.
Yeah, so that's you can just send it to thewildworldpodcast@gmail.com. That's thewildworldpodcast@gmail.com. I guess if you want to leave a comment too, if you don't mind it not being private, you can do that.
Yeah. We'd love to answer your questions about working in the field. Well, I would. He wouldn't.
Yeah, you are. I can just give random false information too if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving us that info. I guess we can move on.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to go over some news about wildlife now. So let's say you needed a good map of the seafloor, perhaps to find the megalodon, as we discussed last month. What would you do?
Would you use like sonar mapping?
Would you? What would you do?
What was it? Oh, there's Operation is a deep scan that is trying to map the entire ocean floor. Is that what you're talking about? At high resolution or something? Because
that is not what I'm talking about. Do you want me to tell you what I'm talking about? There's an option that's cheaper and easier than using robots and other things to map the seafloor. It involves an animal. Can you guess which?
Dolphin?
No, I guess that would work just as well, but this is a study done with sea lions. So this was done around Kangaroo Island and Olive Island in Australia. They employed sea lions to record sea floor footage for them. So how do you think they did that?
Must have attached cameras to the sea lions.
Yeah, they attached cameras and they didn't train them. They just attached cameras and monitoring devices to their head and back. They are devices that will last for a few dives, I think, and then they will sort of like come off, hopefully when the sea lion is on the beach. I think it'll dry out when it's not in water anymore. And they just go about their daily lives. They're not trained to do this, so they are able to see everything that the sea lion sees during the day. Here are some things they found. A sea lion catching a small shark, a sea lion teaching her pup, which was the first time that was ever witnessed, and 89 hours of footage, GPS data, and information such as surface temperature and the amount of plant matter in the water. So they got pretty good data out of this.
Cool.
It's pretty cool, right?
It doesn't sound like an efficient way to map the entire seafloor, though.
Well, you can map some seafloor.
I guess so.
You couldn't use it to find the megalodon. That was just a joke.
Kangaroo Island, though, may have been where possibly the largest ever great white shark was caught.
I hear that place is really hopping. That's a joke from Avatar, so I didn't come up with that in case you're wondering.
I don't explain it.
I don't want them to think I'm ripping off beloved cartoon for my own benefit.
All right. Can I ask mine?
Yeah?
Okay, so can you think of a rare animal that we know exists, but we don't have video footage of?
Humans.
That was probably the worst answer you could have given me.
Okay, I'll think of a better answer. I didn't try very hard on that one. Maybe some animals that, like, were recently discovered in the Amazon and such, little frogs and things, bacteria. I don't know.
I'm gonna add a qualifier. Can you
Wait,
think of
bacteria
a
aren't
very
animals.
large,
Okay.
rare animal?
Like some sort of whale, maybe?
Well, you're on the right track. Um,
Shark.
a colossal squid.
Oh.
So, for a long
I
time,
don't
people
know
have been
it
trying to get.
exists. I'm skeptical.
Oh, you're a fool then.
Well, when I was little, like, people legit thought it didn't exist, you know? It was like almost.
Well, those people are idiots then, because it was discovered in 1925. So I
I
don't know what
remember
all
learning
those
that it was
people
a
were doing.
cryptid. So I grew up thinking that it was, and now it's like hard to reconcile that with the evidence for me, especially since I haven't seen one in real life.
Yeah. Well, the spotlight is always on the giant squid for trying to get like footage and photos and everything, and we finally did a few years ago get footage of a living one. But we didn't have any of a colossal squid in its, at least not in its natural habitat. There's like a photo of one being pulled up beside a ship, but I don't even know if there's video of that. But recently, this year, a team of researchers got footage of what might be a colossal squid. It's very
Mm.
small. So they know it's some type of glass squid, apparently, but they're not 100% sure that it's a colossal squid. And it was recorded at like 600 feet down off the coast, like in between Argentina and Antarctica. So yeah, we may have finally got a colossal squid on video. Maybe.
Good for them. Okay. My next story is a sad story. I don't know if you've heard of Sven and Magic. They are the gay penguin from, I think, Australia again. So Sven was partnered with Magic for 6 years, and he just died. During their time together, they hatched a couple of chicks. They had a very loving relationship, and they were very good parents. When Magic saw Sven's body, he started to sing, and then the rest of the penguins joined in. It's very sad.
That is sad. How did they hatch chicks together? Where were the eggs from?
The first time they were giving them like fake eggs to care for, so they wouldn't feel left out. And then they had them care for an egg that was abandoned or basically abandoned by its parents, and they were better parents than those parents were. I'm not sure what the second egg was from. Probably a similar situation.
That's sort of cute, except for that one of them died.
Yeah, now Magic's alone for the first time in 6 years.
Well, do you think they'll find him a new partner?
I don't know. It's sad. Okay, your last story.
Okay. Sounds like I'm obsessed with these animals. But before
You are,
I ask
though.
the question, I should probably clear up that last podcast when we were like, is this a great shark? Is it not? I think we were both like, no, it's not. Turns out it was.
Yeah, I felt really stupid after that.
Well, it was sort of hard to tell. But it was a great white, but it was filmed off the coast of Australia in like 2008, and someone like clipped a little piece of the footage and said it was off the coast of Galway, and a bunch of tabloids said this 100% confirms that great white sharks are swimming around Ireland.
Mm.
But it was a hoax. And I put
Not
a
true.
link.
Not this time.
Not this time.
We made it up.
We made it up.
It's fiction. But we didn't make it up. But I put a link to the original video under our video so you can check for yourself. But anyway, speaking of great white sharks, where would you go to find a great white shark?
Sri Lanka? Isn't that what we said? Sri Lanka or San Francisco?
Okay. Anywhere
Is
else?
that correct? Weren't there like good places to see them around Sri Lanka? And then
I can't remember about that. Maybe though. I mean, they are. It sounds about right.
also, I don't know, Australia.
Mm-hmm.
A lovely seaside resort on the East Coast. Just pick one that has a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Aren't they like all over?
They are all over, yeah. So my next question is, are they all the same?
No, they all have individual brains, thoughts, and feelings, I'm sure.
Every shark is unique. Are they all the same kind of great white?
Maybe they have subspecies? I don't really know. You're the one who's cold calling me and asking me questions about sharks, and you should know by now that I don't think about sharks as much as you do, so I don't know everything.
You need to let that go. But I'm not. This isn't a trick. I'm just like trying to ask questions to stir up the conversation, like you did with me.
Well,
And
I
I
don't
don't
know.
get angry and say, "No, they don't use robots," even though I said nothing about a robot. You just put that in there, and you're like, "Oh, I bet he'll say this to dope."
No, I was just saying that some people try to use robots to map the seafloor, but that's not necessarily the cheapest option. It was an attack, but now I feel attacked.
And you should. Well, no, there doesn't seem to be subspecies, but there does seem to be different populations, 3 distinct ones. So the way they determined this, I tried to read the paper a few times. It's sort of technical, so you might have to help me a little bit.
It
But
was too hard
have
for
you heard of what's an SNP?
I don't know. No, I don't
It's
know.
a single It's a single
Oh, a single
nucleotide.
nucleotide polymorphism?
Yeah. So my understanding of this was that like
I think
take
we
some
used to
notes
call
down.
them SNPs.
Yeah, I've read that as well. So nucleotides, there's 4 different types. Is that right?
Yeah.
A, C, G, and T.
Yep, all featured in the title of the movie Gattaca. That's how you can remember if you ever forget.
Oh. So from my understanding is that in the DNA sequence of these, to determine that these were different populations, is that some populations had a nucleotide with like an A, and then different ones had a different nucleotide that could have been like a G.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, read the actual paper if you want to understand it properly. Yeah, so basically it seems like there are 3 different populations. Any guess why this is?
Because they don't move around very much and they don't interact, maybe? They have specific regions they like to stay in?
Sort of. So they
Different
are
foods they eat?
Well, why do you think they split in the first place?
Personal differences? Or ocean currents?
Kind of. Apparently, it happened during the last ice age, so different sea levels as well as different currents. Yeah, it caused them to maybe split. So now there's the 3 different types in 3 different areas. Do you want to try and guess?
Okay, like
So
Indian
just like
Ocean,
region.
Pacific
So
Ocean,
Indo-Pacific.
Atlantic Ocean.
North Pacific and Atlantic/Mediterranean. Yep. And they split probably like 150 to 200,000 years ago. And now we have 3 different populations of white sharks.
Which one do you like the best?
I feel sorry for the Atlantic/Mediterranean because I think it's the most endangered.
They also have to live in the coldest water, but also some of the nicest water. The Mediterranean is nice, but the North Atlantic is cold.
Okay, should we move on?
Yes. So we're just going to move on to some YouTube comments today. One comment I realized we never responded to and I felt bad. It was on our video, Is the Javan Tiger Still Out There? From a clip from the podcast. So the person said, I'm an Indonesian person. I believe that the Javan tiger is still alive. One of the research community's BRIN already checked big cat hairs are found in the Sukabumi district. And the result was 29% that hair stated that the hair belonged to a Javanese tiger. They compared it with hair samples from a collection of preserved Javanese tiger specimens at the Bogor Zoological Museum in 1930, and the results also showed that the hair found matched and had the same DNA. So there is a big possibility that the Javanese tiger still exists. Yes, the Javan tiger is still alive in the deep jungle. Smiley face.
That's really cool to get a comment from someone in the area. We always ask for that.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like at least some people are pretty confident that it might still be out there in the region.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if I'm understanding it wrong. It says it's only 29% sure that it's the Javanese tiger, which is quite low. So we still don't really know. I mean, you can have faith in something, but there's not indisputable evidence yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, if this was the DNA or the hair sample that made news a few months ago, I think that it was like ultimately determined to be not conclusive. But maybe this is something else that we missed. Hope so. I hope that we find more conclusive evidence moving forward.
Yeah, I hope so as well.
That's cool. Thanks for the comment.
Yeah, I'll leave a comment on the video as well, just so they know that we saw their comment.
Yeah. They probably gave up watching when we didn't respond.
Yeah, they're like, oh, these people suck, which, yeah, I guess we should respond more because I was going through the comments and I noticed a bunch that we hadn't responded to. Although some of them I didn't even know what to say. I was just like, what does this mean?
Like what?
It's just like irrelevant. Like the thing about Coco on the video about Jane Goodall. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
What about the person who reported us to YouTube for supposedly deleting their comment?
Someone reported us? I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently.
Wow.
That's all we have to say about that, I guess.
So that was one comment. Then we got some comments that you get to guess what video they're from.
Okay, and I have one for you as well.
Okay. So my great uncle bought his property in 1905 in Cobalt. We own it now. There's a lot of sighting all the way to Lady Evelyn Park. Yellowtop was last seen in Coleman heading to the other side of the 11 highway. It's pretty easy now. You see bears daily here. Hard to mistake one. There's a good case in the town over in Latchford. Just type in Latchford Bigfoot. Great case that had photos. So you know what video this is from, right?
Old Yellowtop.
Yeah, but what do you think about what they're saying? Because I typed in Latchford Bigfoot and I could not see the great photos that they were talking about.
Did you find any photos?
No, I barely found anything about it.
Maybe they weren't like published online. It was only in like a local newspaper from a little while ago.
Maybe.
I don't know. It's interesting to hear from people on the ground and
Yeah.
that they seem to think that it's out there and that it's not a bear that's been misidentified.
Yeah. Have faith.
Yeah. It's interesting how like so there's people still having sightings and saying it's out there, but it just like falls out of popularity. It's like no, we're not going to talk about that Bigfoot anymore. We're going to talk about other Bigfoots and these shows and stuff.
Well, he's boring. He has a yellow head, so what? Okay, here is my next comment. Saying non-avian dinosaurs is exactly the same as saying non-primate rodents. They may be related, but it's stupid. Dinosaurs are dead, birds are not. At this point, they are a clade separated by 65 million years. We are more closely related to rats than birds are to dinosaurs. Where does one draw the line? Should we say non-Dimetrodon humans? Non-evolutionary protozoa? Non-Big Bang stardust consciousness? How long do two groups need to be separated before they stop being lumped in together? Do you know what video that's from?
Is that from one of the podcast videos?
No. It's from one of your videos.
No. A Jurassic Park video, maybe?
It was 5 things Jurassic Park got right. Do you have a response to this?
Do you want to respond? Should I respond?
So this person clearly does not understand evolution because we are not as related to rats as birds are to dinosaurs. The reason that people say non-avian dinosaurs is because there is a clade that contains dinosaurs and birds, and it is the same clade. If you try to remove birds from the dinosaur clade, then you have what's called paraphyletic, I believe that's the term, which means you have a group that are all descended from the same ancestor, but you're arbitrarily removing one group, and it doesn't make scientific sense. So it would be like if you had a family reunion and you were like, here we have all the Smiths, and you specifically made one group of people, your cousins, leave because they all had red hair and you hated them because you're a bad person. And you're like, they don't count as the Smiths because they have red hair, and that isn't what we Smiths are about. But it's like you literally all related to the same, you were all descended from the same great-grandmother or whatever, so you are the same family. It's exactly the same, just a little bit longer. At the time of dinosaurs, we even already had some birds emerging, so they aren't separated by 65 million years. And they're not clade separated at all because, like I said, they are one clade. So when you're talking about non-avian dinosaurs, you're just saying all the dinosaurs that are gone. I don't want to talk about the dinosaurs that are still here. Did I answer it right? Well.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I feel, why can't we just get past this?
People have a lot of anger about
Every
dinosaurs.
time, no, they're not. But say you said, like, yeah, the first birds emerged in the Jurassic along with classic dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what did you say? Non-Dimetrodon humans? What are you talking about, man?
Yeah, that was a good one. That would be a really good name for a band, actually. Non-Dimetrodon Humans.
Would it?
It would be a normal name for a band. A good one. As long as your music is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Each album can be a different, like, epoch or something.
Yes. But then when you get to the modern era, you're going to have to stop making music.
Yeah, well, you'll be old by then.
Okay. And then you have something for me?
Yeah. This is the take from someone who has no critical thinking and wants to believe in what they want. That's why our population is so dumb, lol. I hope she's playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. We talked about that already. I was playing devil's advocate. So I think it takes a lot of critical thinking to think of all the possible arguments for and against something. This was in our most recent podcast where we were debating... What were we debating?
If Megalodon's still around.
Oh, Megalodon, which really got people to come out of the woodworks and watch that video because everyone loves Megalodon, I guess. So maybe this person hadn't seen our other podcasts where we do this every time and we say arguments for and against certain animal being alive.
This is the worst place to put this, like, clarification, because it's, like, near the end when most people don't get to. But just in case you are here and you're new, when we do Cryptid Courts and we debate, it's not about what we actually believe. It's just about trying to get both sides of the argument, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Get all the information that's out there and put it in one place. So thank you for listening and watching, person who commented that. I think I have critical thinking skills, like at least more than none. I'm not sure though how much I have. And I don't know, maybe our population is sort of dumb. I mean, people do stupid things every day, but also people do good and smart things every day. So it's hard to say if the population as a whole is so dumb. I think humans just are like other animals. Just sometimes do crazy things. Like, have you ever seen a cat run straight into a wall? I have. I've also walked into a wall, so...
Yeah, okay, answers that.
Okay, so those are all our comments for today, and that's the end of our podcast. Is there anything else you would like to ask me about my job in the fields? Do you have any thoughts about the Agianapa sea monster? If so, please let us know.
By emailing us at thewildworldpodcast@gmail.com. That's thewildworldpodcast@gmail.com.
Or you can leave a comment on the video on YouTube. We would love to hear from you if you're from Cyprus, Greece or Turkey, the Mediterranean in general. If you want to know more about fieldwork, if you do fieldwork, if you are a sea lion, if you are a sea monster, if you're a shark or a colossal squid, we want to hear from you. So that would be cool. You could send us a video of yourself as well. And we welcome your feedback and thank you for listening.
All right. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.